In today's video, I'm going to discuss the 5 absolute worst pieces of real estate advice that I hear all the time. Things that I hear from friends and family when I talk to them, people online, and also even news media outlets and even some of the financial gurus out there. Now, if you're new to my channel, welcome. My name is Shaun. I am an entrepreneur and real estate investor and property flipper. I own a finance, fitness, and life coaching company. And in addition to that, I have purchased over 40 rental property and property flips. So this is advice that I'm coming from with own personal experience because of the same ones that I made that really held me back. Now, the very first mistake that I hear people make all the time is I'm going to wait until interest rates drop before I buy some property. And that's because right now interest rates are at a very high point compared to just a few years ago. And so it's very easy to think, well, let me wait until they go back down so I'm going to save myself some money. This is probably the same thing that I would have thought when I first started my own personal journey. But to really understand why this is a mistake, you have to really understand the last few years. When the pandemic first happened, the Feds lowered interest rates to a pretty much all-time historic low. And in addition to that, they injected a ton of capital to help stimulate and boost the economy. And because of really historic low interest rates and a major injection of capital into the economy, we saw a huge amount of home purchases, and inventory with homes began to get to an all-time low. And this made home prices skyrocket in value over the last couple years. Now, in order to help decrease and stop the rapid inflation that was happening, recently the Feds have increased interest rates, and they've essentially doubled almost overnight in the last year or two. Now, this has finally allowed home prices to cool off a little bit, but it's got a lot of people wondering, should I buy now? Maybe I should wait until they drop back down. Even if interest rates do end up dropping back down, you're going to see another surge of home price increase. So what you want to do is you do want to buy property right now, even though interest rates are high, because you have a little more negotiating power now than we did a year or two ago when you had to give your firstborn child $100,000 over asking price and exotic vacations, possibly be able to buy a home. So because you have more negotiating power, this is easier to get into buying a home. And then if interest rates do drop, we're going to see a nice increase in prices of home values at that point. You're going to capture that equity growth, and you're going to be able to potentially refinance for that lower interest rate. The best time to buy real estate was 10 years ago, and the next best time is today. And in fact, every single environment is a great time to buy real estate as long as you approach it the right way, depending on the type of economy that's happening right now. Now, the second mistake that I see people make all the time is thinking that they have to have 20% down payment to buy a home. If you're buying your own personal home, you can do as little as 0% down with certain types of loans, and depending on if you qualify for certain programs. VA loans, if you're a veteran or in the military, that let you put as little as 0% down. There's also certain programs like Home Partners of America that can allow you to put as little as 0% down on your personal home if you happen to qualify. Now, if you're watching this on Instagram, be sure to DM the word zero money down, and I will connect you with one of my team members to see if you actually would qualify for something as little as 0% down, depending on your situation. However, even if you don't qualify for 0% down, there still are other programs like 3.5% FHA loans and even as low as 5% conventional loans for your personal property. Now, if you're looking at buying an investment property, then yes, you're going to need to put 20% down, but that doesn't mean that you have to put down 20%. In my own personal real estate journey, I've been able to purchase property with as little as zero of my own money on investment properties if you understand how to navigate creative financing. The very first one being seller financing. So if the owner happens to own the property outright or has a lot of equity built into the property, you could negotiate a 0% down payment, and essentially the seller is going to act like the bank and you're going to pay the seller. Another way you could do this is actually raising money from friends and family for the down payment. And you may be wondering, well, why would someone do that? Well, if you can offer them a really good percentage profit return or even profit with equity deal or just equity, there might be some great incentive for your friends and family to invest in the property with you. If you find really good deals, the money will come. Get really good at underwriting rental properties, learn how to assess how much a property is going to cash flow if it's an investment property, and start talking to people about rental properties. If you've never talked about real estate, you've never talked about investing in real estate, and all of a sudden you're going to friends and family and saying, hey, you want to invest with me? They might not want to because they're not really sure if you know what you're talking about. Third mistake that I see people make all the time when it comes to investing in rental property is thinking that real estate is way too much work or that someone's going to trash their place and completely destroy it. Typically, anytime I hear someone say those words, I pretty much already know that they're never going to build massive wealth. If you talk to anybody who's built wealth, they will tell you that you have to let other people use your stuff. I have not seen any investment or any way of making money that requires absolutely no work. Things take work. I think a lot of times people have this misconception that they own some rental properties, they're gonna have like all these midnight calls with pipe busts and then, tenants destroying everything. It's just gonna be this huge disaster. Now, I have personally managed over 20 rental properties at one time, and even at that many properties, I can tell you that there's really not that much work. And especially if you learn how to screen tenants correctly, you can avoid a lot of these issues. Now, let's say that you don't want to do hardly any work at all and you want to keep this as passive as possible, then you also have the option of getting a property manager. While it is going to cost you about 5 to 10% of your gross revenue, all you got to do now is just oversee the property manager and making sure that they're handling everything accordingly. But if you really want to build passive income and build wealth, you have to get out of the mindset of it's going to be too much work. No one has ever built massive wealth without putting in some extra work. The fourth mistake that I see people make all the time is saying that they're going to wait to get their real estate license before they start investing. I don't really understand why this tends to be a very common thing, because a lot of people even ask me, well, hey, when did you get your license? And I don't actually have my real estate license right now. You don't have to have a real estate license in order to invest in rental property. And in fact, the only reason you need to get a real estate license is so that you are legally able to represent someone else in the purchase or sale of a property. So unless if you're actually wanting to represent buyers or sellers and helping them buy their own personal home or even an investment property, there's actually no need to get your own real estate license. Some people will argue getting your license will give you access to the MLS or even things like really learning more about real estate. But to be honest, there's all kinds of programs and tools out there that can give you a lot of access that's similar to the MLS. To be honest, a lot of things that you learn in getting your real estate license really it's not that applicable for learning how to buy rental property. I would spend that time really learning more about underwriting deals, learning how to find deals, and worst case scenario, partner with a friend or someone that you know that has a real estate license and negotiate a friends and family discount so you're not paying as high of fees. Now, the fifth mistake I see people make all the time when investing in real estate is thinking that we are in a bubble. Pretty much every day, every single month, every single year, people are saying we're in a bubble and real estate is going to go down. And if you really look at the history of real estate correction, even when we're in a recession, most of the time properties are only decreasing by 5 to 10% overall, and sometimes a little bit more. But here's the deal, and here's what I tell people all the time. Let's say that you do happen to buy a rental property today, and let's say that the exact second that you buy the property, that property values do drop 10 or 15+%. Here's the thing, when you look at the history of real estate, if you're investing for the long term, which is how you should be investing anyways in real estate, over the next 10, 20, 30 years, even if property values do drop temporarily, they are going to go back up, and I can almost guarantee, there's no guarantees but I can pretty safely bet that in the next 20, 30 plus years, the real estate market is going to be way more expensive than it was today. So you really want to make sure when you hear things like we're in a bubble to really zoom out to a larger picture of the overall growth trend of real estate. And in fact, since the history of real estate, it has appreciated somewhere between 3 and 4%. And so I don't think that we're necessarily in a bubble. It is possible that real estate could go down. No one really knows in short term, but over the long term, it's always a pretty safe bet to assume that property values are going to continue to rise over time. Now, if you found this information very useful, please be sure to smash the like button, hit the subscribe button as well, leave some comments below with any questions that you have, and please be sure to share this with anyone that you think might find this useful. But I hope you're having an amazing day. Let's get out there and let's build that dream.